Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're watching. Welcome to our very first Inside Out webinar. My name's Alex Redfern. I'm the SVP Solutions Architecture at EVS, but today I'm also the moderator here. With cyber attacks continuing their growth and becoming more sophisticated, media companies are facing increasing pressure to secure their broadcast infrastructures. High-profile live sports events especially are at great risk since their popularity makes them an ideal target for hackers who might be motivated by financial gain or publicity or even nationalism. Today, we want to discuss the challenges of securing live production at EURO2020, including the impact of new production workflows within the topic of broadcast network security, and then an outlook on what's next. I'm here today with two experts in the field of cybersecurity, so I'd like to introduce you to Gaël Clavadetier and Geoffrey Crespin. Gaël is the Senior Information Security Manager at UEFA, and Geoffrey is a Senior Solutions Architect who focuses on live video security. Welcome. Thanks for joining us, Gaël and Geoffrey. Before we start, I'd like to invite you to ask questions. You can do that through the question process, through the chat. We'll pick these up later on and discuss them later in the presentation. What we're going to do is Gaël's going to run through a few slides on how UEFA addresses security and his role within UEFA, and then Geoffrey will run through a few slides as well on how EVS addresses and meets those needs. So, Gaël, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us. Please give us an introduction on what UEFA offers and how you protect UEFA and their assets.
Perfect. So, hi everyone. Happy to be here on this virtual event. Thanks, Alex, for the introduction. So my name is Gaël Clavadetier. As Alex just said, I'm in charge of information security at UEFA. Role for us, for my group, is fundamentally to protect our assets, image, data. So in the end, to protect any information linked to UEFA, protect UEFA. As a starting point, I wanted to go a bit in history and explain what happened in the past and where we move on, etc. So let's start with 2008. On cybersecurity aspect, 2008 is almost prehistory. At that time, we had already some attacks, some stuff, but it was more university, a challenge, or one person in one place trying to make some fun. It did harm some time, but then was nothing to compare to today, as we will see. And on our side, on a security perspective at UEFA, we had more like what we call a silo approach, meaning we had no dedicated group to secure our environment. It did, however, change in 12. First is when we had for Euro 2012, for the one who might remember, we had our first, I would say, activism and major attacks on Euro 2012 with Anonymous. And following that, and with other way, what happened is a new group or a new team had been created, meaning first was myself, my position. And between 12 to 16, we did focus on corporate security. I built new strategy, new risk assessment, policy, awareness, strong focus on endpoint. Have to understand that from 2014, there was truly a game changer. Started to have what we can call CREAM as a service. It means started to have some entity, criminal, who for money will do scam, phishing, etc. And it started to be a professional. So it was not anymore the same story that we had in the past. And so we needed to have other way of protecting ourselves than in the past. When we moved on, 18, we had a huge increase of phishing attempts on new technology, etc. We worked a lot on, I would say, advanced security, cloud security, documentation security, IAM, identity access management, etc. We did focus, we'll come back to that after, to what we call audit process security on stadium event, which concern TV as well for IBC. And in 2020, Euro 2020, so in 21, we had our first cases of hacked threat or attack actually against stadium. That was the first time we had that. And on a protection perspective, what comes next, I would say it's more revamp of what we have is adapting to new situation, etc., reviewing our services, our solution. And one of the key questions we're having, because of course, all attacks that happened in the past can continue to happen. We were lucky so far not to have an attack on TV, but clearly the question is what will come on TV side. And if we focus on what we call event audit process, for this part, what we have to understand is, again, there is kind of two, we can lightly say, two security. The corporate one, it's endpoint protection, email protection, but then there is all those services being provided, not necessarily by UEFA, not necessarily by IT, but if hack could harm us, UEFA a lot. This goes from stadium. What happens if lighting goes down? Anything connected can be concerned. It could be from access, could be from TV, could be from the pitch. In some cases, there is the way capacity to move out the pitch. What if that is hacked, etc., etc. So to address this situation, what we did starting on 18, actually, we implemented a new audit process on top of all other security that we have for corporate security, which concept is simple. Is we went to the stadium, all those services that was not truly under our control or our responsibility, but if hack could harm UEFA or Euro or event so badly, so we went to the stadium. We started to review what they had, what they had implemented, what it was the level of the maturity, and as well what we implemented is what we call penetration test. It means we act as a using same tools than hacker to see what a real hacker will be able to do. And that was the first time we did that. I would say main outcomes was it was kind of new for the groups we were in contact with, going from TV, PMS, physical security, so CCTV per instance. Difference between venues or services. It was now clear outcomes was we found a lot of interesting information before the tournament to how to improve, but as well during the tournament, meaning we had, as mentioned, one case of incident, which could have been big, but with all what we did before, being able to communicate directly with the right people about the right subject, knowing how the stadium had the security built, did help us to react quickly. And just on my side to finish, for this part, if we do a quick focus on TV, I would say the first time we did consider cybersecurity on my side for TV was in 2016, but it was extremely light. Was more to focus on just the monitoring system, etc. In 2020, we did increase a little bit, but we still had, I would say, the assumption that the risk was low, medium. And why? The thing is, clearly, if a TV get hacked, for us, this is extremely bad. But however, at that time, consideration was that historically, TV network had always been very well, by nature, isolated. So in the end, likelihood of something happening was very low. So impact high, but low likelihood. Risk in the end, medium. So we did increase our assessment of what we had in 2020. We worked with EBU on the subject. We did some light, I would say, pen test, penetration test, etc. All went well. For 2024, actually, what we realized during this audit is clearly it's changing a lot. TV is not that isolated anymore. It's being more and more connected, meaning the surface of attack, how we call it, is getting bigger and bigger. So what is planned for 2024, what we started to do is we'll have deeper audits, and as well we'll have more connectivity connection from TV service to our SOC being our Security Operations Center, meaning if anything happen, if a hack is happening, we'll be able to see it before something too bad happen, and before we have this image that hopefully will never happen. So on my side, that's it. Give the floor to Geoffrey.
Gal, thank you for that. Yeah, really interesting insights. We'll come back with a short Q&A afterwards. If anyone wants to raise any questions about that, please do so in the Q&A section. I'll make an announcement to show you where that is shortly. Geoffrey, over to you. Be interesting to see how we can secure those live production workflows.
Yes, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Gail, for the great presentation. So let's continue the presentation, and I would like to talk about how we secured the EVS workflows during the same event, during the EURO2020. So let's talk about the agenda for the short presentation. I would like, first of all, to discuss about the challenges we face during this event. We will also discuss about the high-level diagram of the EVS workflows and explain how we secured the most important EVS workflow. And finally, I would like to end the presentation with the challenges for the future and also how we consider cybersecurity in live IP and also in broadcast networks. So let's talk about the challenges for the Euro 2020. Well, nothing new, of course, but today production networks are not isolated anymore. It's a fact. It's like that. We have to consider it when we implement EVS workflows. We cannot consider the broadcast network as isolated. We have to interconnect more and more different networks, sometimes with partners, third parties, and we have also to allow home workers. It was something new for Euro 2020 to allow remote editors also to work on our PAM solution. What about also remote support? It's also a challenge to help our customer to, let's say, fix some issues during the event. We can talk also about international venues, something new also for Euro 2020, considering the number of stadium, not in the same country. So you add complexity, of course, and also cloud exchanges. So let's describe the high-level diagram, what we did for the Euro 2020. So it's a very high-level diagram, but it gives you a nice idea about how we secure the EVS workflows. So in the middle of the slide, you see the entry points. So we have a firewall, traditional perimeter firewall, filtering incoming traffic to the infrastructure. As I said, this year we had home editors using our PAM solution and using also our edition tools. We also had web users using the Media Hub solution. On the right side of the slide, you have the IBC, where you have, of course, you need remote access to the IBC to support our EVS machine. We have also interconnection between the venues and the IBC. So within the venues, we did the ingest and then we transfer the files to the IBC. It was also a challenge. And something new, also the IMG editors this year based in London, not within the IBC anymore, but based in London. So just to give you an overview of the different challenges, we can talk about also the interconnection with UBPs, so to the different broadcaster networks, and also to the EBU and UEFA network using the Eurovision network. So what about the solutions to secure this type of interconnections? First of all, the first one, go to the basic. Let's go to the roots. We have to use the segregation, network segregation. So as I said, we cannot consider today the broadcast network as a flat network. We cannot work like that anymore. We have to create zones and create network segregation to isolate different zones in the network. That's what we did. First of all, we defined the first zone to install our web application firewall. I will come back to that later on. The second zone is the zone containing the web application and the services, web servers, streaming servers, and stuff like that. And the final one, the third one, is the PAM, the internal network. Then we have also to segregate the internal network with the broadcasters to limit traffic only to file transfer. And finally, we have also to exchange files with external networks, not only broadcasters, but also with UEFA using the Eurovision network. The next security measures we used at EURO2020 is the web application firewall. So as you know today, the traditional network firewall, traditional perimeter firewall is not enough anymore. You still have to continue, of course, to create a nice perimeter to protect your infrastructure, but we decided also to put an extra layer of security using the web application firewall. So the WAF, let's call it like that, the WAF is used as a reverse proxy to filter incoming traffic and filter the traffic at application level. Not at the layer 3 and layer 4 of the OZ model, but we filter traffic at the layer 7. Well, you can say that it's nothing new, but here we use the specific type of configuration for our WAF. We use the whitelist approach. It means that we allowed only legit traffic to enter the network. It's something new also, because when you buy a web application firewall, you can just configure it easily. You can use the default rules and then you are okay. In our case, we decided to do the opposite, to create specific rules to allow only what we want. This is, of course, challenging because you have to know exactly what request you have to allow. Of course, when you implement this type of solution, it's the default deny all. So it means if it's not in the configuration, then it's blocked. When you use that type of configuration, it's very secure because you are sure that you allow only the real traffic. You allow only what you want exactly in your infrastructure. But of course, it needs a lot of fine-tuning and expertise also to develop and create specific rules. Next, security measures we configured for the EURO2020 is the EVS sniffer. It's to get visibility and to detect network attack. It's an intrusion detection system. So it's acting like a CCTV. So it's like detecting, not blocking the traffic. We are in a passive mode, so we are just collecting traffic, collecting PCAP, packet captures for forensic investigation and for real-time alerting. It was also very useful to detect specific attacks. And it's running, as I said, in passive mode, so we don't block the traffic at all. So let's discuss quickly about the next challenges. So as I said, today, we cannot continue to work with flat networks. We have to secure not only the IBC networks, but also secure our own zone, our own infrastructure. And to do that, we can use the microsegmentation. I will come back to that concept later on. What about live IP exchange? Of course, it's a very important one. A lot of customers are moving from SDI to IP, but we have to consider also the security part. What about the security within the venues? As explained by Gael in the introduction, it's a very hot topic also today to not only consider the internal bubble of the IBC, but also to protect the different venues. And also, what about cloud exchanges? We are moving to hybrid production, so using on-prem and cloud solutions. And finally, more and more, we will have to extend remote production. So production from anywhere. And this is the next challenge also. To come back to the perimeter protection, of course, we have to continue to use traditional firewalls to create zones and segregate the networks. We have to continue to do that, to create DMZ, for instance. That's what we did for the EURO2020, create specific zones for internet-facing application. We cannot directly connect it to the internal network. We have to continue to use web application firewall, of course. It's a good solution, it's working well. and we have to continue to protect the entire network with strong firewalls. But the question is, what if the threat comes from the inside? Yeah, think about an internal machine infected by a ransomware. So as soon as you are inside the network, then it's game over, even if you have a very strong perimeter protection. So this is for us the next challenge, the real question. So can I trust all my machines in the internal network? What if a station is infected, an internal station is infected? How can I control my networks, the interconnection between networks? How is it routed internally? So if I'm reached by an infected machine, what else? Then we introduce the concept of zero trust. It's an approach to secure all machines running an EVS application. With the zero trust, it ensures only the trusted devices can communicate together. And we do that by applying local firewall policy to control the internal traffic. That's the reason why we developed a new solution, a new product called the EVS Shield to secure the flat networks, to secure the EVS product itself. So today, broadcast networks, sometimes there is no firewall. Sometimes we connect the Wi-Fi directly to the same network. All the users have access to everything. So this is a risk, high risk in cybersecurity. And even for bigger setup, there is only one perimeter firewall protecting the infrastructure, and you cannot really filter the traffic between VLANs. So that's the reason why we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our product, our EVS product. And that's also the reason why we introduced the concept of EVS Shield. So quickly, to finish this presentation, what is EVS Shield? EVS Shield is there to apply this micro-segmentation or zero trust concept. It's composed of a shield agent, so installed on each machine hosting an EVS product, and it takes control of the local application firewall. Then you have also the shield manager, and yeah, it's clear, the shield manager will securely control all the different shield agents and will apply a very strict firewall policy. So that's our vision for the next challenges about how to secure flat networks and how to secure EVS workflows for the next months, for the next challenges we will face. Thank you for your attention.
Geoffrey, thank you very much for that detailed presentation. It's interesting to see the need of zero trust now, you know, where we have to go in the future. I had a few questions off the back of that, if I may. I'll start with you, Gail. You mentioned that in 2024 you're going to pay a lot more attention to security around TV production. What problems do you expect to find with broadcast?
I will not say problem, more challenge, but as Geoffrey explained, and as I mentioned before, in the past we had this assumption of everything was isolated, so our security surface of attack was very limited. This is clearly not the case anymore, as Geoffrey explained now. So for us, will be to ensure that given those old connection, old stuff coming from people outside, from new partner, from everything, that we'll need to ensure that everything, of course, here presented by EVS will be, how to say, guaranteed, and we will work together to ensure that everything is effective, etc. And then one of the things will be, of course, I mentioned before, this audit, and then we will have those hackers, because one of the things to understand as well when we speak about TV, on the broadcaster network, the component used are not always, I would say, the most updated services, because sometimes it's legacy stuff, and it's not always possible to have last, I would say, update, etc. But in any case, for us, truly, is that this new connection is connected. It's the same for corporate security, what we had to implement a few years ago. Now it's for TV is the same. It's just top to think that it's isolated and we'll be happy. No, we need to focus on that and ensure that every potential hole or entry are covered.
That's interesting. Geoffrey mentioned quite a lot about the sort of the simplistic or the flat networks that we find in broadcast TV. How do you feel we can secure them? I mean, we touched on microsegmentation for the security of endpoints, but when we get into these complex broadcast networks, Geoffrey or Gael, how do you feel we really can deal with flat networks where they're sort of necessary in an aging environment?
I can start if you want, Gael. That's a very good question indeed, because with the flat networks, they can be faster and perform better than conventional tiered networks because they enable more direct communication among the devices, and they are very well suited for broadcast networks. That's the reason why it's a reality. But however, flat networks being a security issue, a big one, say how to balance the performance against the risk. That's the question. Huh? And so to answer your question, to secure the flat network, you can just put network segmentation and boundaries like firewalls, and then you create VLANs, you create different VLANs and add firewalls and you filter traffic. But sometimes when you speak with customers, they don't want to change the infrastructure. Huh? It's not possible when it's existing architecture. So that's the reason why we introduce this concept of microsegmentation, because sometimes you cannot touch the architecture and you cannot do that. So you have to continue to live with the existing one, but you have to protect the device itself and not the architecture. That's our approach.
And what about in those flat networks? We see a big rise in live IP in SMPTE 2110. They're very high bandwidth networks. They're moving a lot of data around. Gael, is that a problem that you've had to solve before?
I mean, for this one, I will leave maybe more for Geoffrey. This is more EVS part. I'm not too aware of the TV, but or the challenge you mean for the high bandwidth? Or
yeah, high bandwidth networks. Is that something that, from a more of a corporate IT perspective, perhaps?
No, I mean, honestly, for me, I would say I don't see big difference in the concept. It's just we just need bigger protection. I mean, like bigger firewall, bigger WAF, bigger everything, and cost more. But I'm not sure. I see a huge difference on this one. I don't know if anything to add on Geoffrey's side, but clearly it's. I would not say it's a big new challenge. Not this one. It's more the connection from outside, etc. But this one, maybe I might change future my perspective. But today, on my knowledge, etc., I would say it's the same. It's just bigger stuff that we have to implement.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I fully agree. Huh? Of course, we have to secure communication at live IP level, of course, and we cannot do that with traditional firewalls. I mean, we are talking about huge bandwidth, of course, and if we, let's say, talk about traditional firewalls, then it will be very complex to filter that type of traffic, especially because we have also to continue to provide to keep the performance of SDI with the IP solution. So we are not only talking about flexibility of the IP, we have to keep the same functionality, like bridging of audio and video from baseband to IP, embedding, audio routing and stuff like that. Multiple live and compressed signals need also to the real-time processing. So we have to keep the same functionalities. And so to do that, let's say we have to use specific security solution to filter traffic between live IP networks and SDI or traditional networks.
Excellent, thanks for that. I'm just going to change tracks a little bit. Gael, something you touched on is about the expectations of TV or something. It was I think your words were something like that. So there's a reactivity in broadcast, the idea of we're on air where you can't change the kickoff time. So what does happen if you detect something at short notice? 2 minutes before, 2 days before, 2 weeks before?
Well, I mean, first, clearly the first point is to make sure that if we have the time to do this audit, assessment, etc., when something happens, we better to react because we know the people, we know what this happened, we know if it's bad or not bad, we know whatever. I mean, we have all this visibility, which will save us a lot of time. Now, when this happened, like let's say 10 minutes before a game or something like this, and we, at some point, either we can quickly isolate something, otherwise, what we'll have is more focus on the monitoring. Geoffrey mentioned the IDS, all those services which are here to help detecting when something is coming, and meaning if attack or else come, we can react on the specific attack. But in the end, clearly, if it's just before the games or like this, the operation I mean, it would be hard to stop something just on assumption. So the fact will be first to know what we have so that we can react quickly and not overreact as well. This is super important. Second, if we can isolate, we isolate, and then the monitoring. That will be, I think, for my 3 PR here.
And what about the impacts of an attack? In 2008, there was a lightning strike, I think, that caused a transmission outage, which is probably the last time, I think, that there was a transmission outage at the Euros or at UEFA event. So is security a more likely cause in the future, or how do you mitigate the idea of sort of natural disasters versus security?
I mean, first, I'm not sure if the last or the only time we had that. That was extremely big. No, I don't remember. I will not put my word on that one. It was extremely big. I was not in cybersecurity yet, but I remember my friend in IBC having no more life. It was bad, very bad. I think it was semi-final, if I remember correctly. In any case, this to happen again, well, I hope so not. But the thing with cybersecurity, we have as well the availability aspect that we consider today. Clearly, what happened in 8 was a bit out of cybersecurity, but however, when we discuss cybersecurity, we discuss as well availability, and meaning what will happen if this service is down, how do you manage that, etc. Meaning we might address things that in 2008 maybe was not samely addressed or else, but clearly in future, if cyber attack will happen and we have no more TV, this will be extremely bad. So that's why we're here to work together and ensure that it will never happen. But again, this is
so just finally then, can you tell us a bit about COVID and working remotely and how that's impacted UEFA from a security perspective?
So actually it didn't impact us too much on a cybersecurity aspect. Obviously for other aspects that was a pretty big. First, it did force the people to use some of our remote services, and the thing with UEFA, we work already a lot with freelancers, with people who have or who had to connect from remote, meaning when COVID happened, we had already services and tools that maybe other company didn't had. So on this aspect, the COVID didn't change too much, but clearly it's that's one of the reasons it did increase the bring your own device requirement, etc. So we had already bring your own device policy. We had already safe way to connect from remote. It's just that we have today maybe to review and continue improving this aspect. But honestly, on a purely cybersecurity perspective, only thing with COVID is there was more attack linked to COVID, meaning faking whatever linked to COVID or like this. But it didn't, us at least on our area, it was not a big game changer, the COVID. We were ready with our services and what we had before.
And Geoffrey, what trends have we seen in deploying broadcast technologies securely at home?
Yeah, indeed, that's also a great question. In fact, with remote production, we have to do more with less. So you don't need the complex logistic anymore. You don't have to, but you have to still produce content without maybe a production team to the field. So it's a real challenge. But it means also that you will have to use sometimes the public network, the Wi-Fi at home, your own infrastructure at home, your personal computer sometimes. So the challenge for EVS is, okay, we know that we know that our customers are going to that direction, and so we have to create secure and robust remote production workflows. that's the only way to secure protocols, to use secure protocols to communicate not only to deliver high quality video, let's say, over any network. We have to do that because we still have to keep the quality, the video quality, but we have to do it in a secure way. And that's the challenge, to develop and to continue to develop secure protocols for the product used in remote production.
Thank you both. I just wanted to open it to some questions in the Q&A. There's a really interesting one from Carlos that I'd like to ask both of you, actually, for two different takes. It says, historically, broadcast equipment vendors don't prioritize security and patching for vulnerabilities. How do you handle appliances that run on a limited OS but may have vulnerabilities which the vendors are not focused on fixing? So I think, actually, Gail, it's interesting to hear your side of that on the what pressure you might put on vendors to fix that. And Geoffrey, then maybe we'll hear your side on what we're doing to address that.
On my side, we have, and we had, and we will have same issue for all this event security I mentioned before. We had that with the BMS system, with CCTV, with often when we come to the stadium, we might not be able to force because the cost would be too big to fix that. So we try to do our best to encourage that. And when not possible, what we try to deal with our partner is to try to isolate otherwise the service as much as possible and to better protect, I would say, the perimeter. There will always be cases that you cannot patch because the risk is too big for the operation. So in this case, we try truly to isolate or there are some services like WAF IPS who can kind of do virtual patching, how we call it, meaning it will if the hacker try to take advantage of that, they will be blocked actually, because the system will know it's trying to use those vulnerability, and then it will stop it. Same on the computer. In some cases, you can install some services which, if we know it's weak, if there's an attack taking advantage of that, we can work on that, on the attack and not on the patch. But it's kind of a level of protection. If we can fix the patch, it reduces the risk a lot.
And Geoffrey, what are we doing to address the patches, the Windows updates type scenarios?
Yeah, indeed, that's also a good question indeed, because it's requested a lot. So first of all, we take security seriously at EVS. It's really a top priority for EVS to deliver not only secure workflows, but also to deliver secure products. And as you know, security is a process, it's not a product. So we cannot say we just deliver a secure product and that's it, we have done our part. No, we are not working like that. We developed internally processes to, let's say, to patch our own products, to follow it, and to share with customers recommendations about Microsoft patches, for instance. So you mentioned the Microsoft Patch Tuesday. So what we do at EVS, every Patch Tuesday, we apply the Microsoft updates internally. We have a specific lab to do that. We test basic workflows, and then we produce a document every month that we can share with customers to say, okay, you can go with that version, with that KB from Microsoft. It's more a process rather than just delivering a secure product.
That's great. Thank you very much. Well, I think this kind of brings us to the end of the webinar. Thank you to both of you, especially to you, Gail, for giving us a real insight on how UEFA sort of secures their productions, and Geoffrey for your insight into what EVS is doing around security. I'd like to thank the audience as well. Thank you all for joining us and participating. Thank you for the questions. If you want to learn more about the subject, you can download our white paper from evs.com. You go to the search and type cybersecurity. You'll see a blog post from Geoffrey, which is excellent. You'll see a white paper, which is worth downloading. And if you want to discuss it with us, please get in touch. Please contact us, and we'll be happy to respond to you. So thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time on the next Inside Out webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Gail.
Bye-bye. Thank you.